The massive space station hung in the void like a metal city. Nexus Station was bigger than most moons, its spinning rings creating artificial gravity for the thousands of beings inside. Ships from across the galaxy docked at its many ports. Some vessels were sleek and silver, others looked like living creatures made of metal and crystal. All of them dwarfed the single human ship that approached the station's outer docking ring. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES, Defender, watching the alien vessels through the main screen. His ship looked plain compared to the others. Where alien ships gleamed with exotic metals and pulsed with strange energies, the Defender appeared to be simple gray steel with basic engines and standard communication arrays. First time seeing this many alien ships together, said Lieutenant Amy Brooks from her position at the weapons console. She was young, maybe 25, with short brown hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her fingers moved across her controls, but the weapons system showed as powered down and locked. "Makes you feel small, doesn't it?" replied Carl Turner from the engineering station. The chief engineer was older, with graying hair and calloused hands from years of working on spacecraft. He kept glancing at his readings, making small adjustments that seemed routine. Helen Price, the human diplomat, stood near the captain's chair. She wore a simple blue suit that looked formal but not flashy. "Remember, we're here to make friends, not enemies. The Galaxy Council has been talking about letting Earth join for 3 years. This is our chance." Morrison nodded. He was a man in his 40s with steady hands and calm eyes. He had commanded the Defender for 2 years, but this was the biggest mission of his career. "Amy, keep our weapons offline. Carl, make sure we look like exactly what they expect." "Yes, sir," both officers replied. The Defender moved slowly toward the docking port assigned to them. Around them, alien ships moved with grace and power. A Zephyrian cruiser passed nearby, its crystal hull catching light from the nearby star. The ship was beautiful, like a work of art that could fly through space. Its weapons were clearly visible, but appeared to be decorative rather than threatening. "Incoming message from Station Control," Amy announced. "Put it through," Morrison said. The main screen flickered and showed an alien face. The being had blue skin and large eyes that seemed to glow with inner light. "Human vessel, you are cleared for docking port 77 Alpha. Welcome to Nexus Station. I am Harbor Master Keln of the Arcturus Union." "Thank you, Harbor Master. We appreciate the welcome." Keln's expression seemed friendly, but there was something in those glowing eyes that looked like curiosity mixed with doubt. "We have been eager to meet your people. Your ship is smaller than we expected." Morrison kept his voice level. "The Defender serves our needs well. Of course, please follow the guidance beacons to your assigned dock." The screen went dark, and Morrison could feel his crew watching him. The comment about their ship's size had not been an insult, but it was clearly a surprise. Most species brought entire fleets when they came to join the Galaxy Council. Earth had sent one ship with 4 people. The docking process took an hour. During that time, more alien ships arrived and departed. Morrison counted vessels from at least 12 different species. Some he recognized from the briefing materials Earth had received. Others were completely new to him. The Korath ships were the most impressive. These vessels were built for war, with thick armor and massive guns that could destroy a planet. The Korath themselves were warriors, tall and strong with red skin and fierce eyes. Their leader, Admiral Vex, commanded a battleship that was 10 times the size of the Defender. "Look at that thing," Carl said, pointing at the Korath flagship. "Must have a crew of thousands." "And enough firepower to crack a moon," Amy added. Helen frowned as she watched the alien ships. "I hope they're as peaceful as they claim to be." Morrison said nothing, but he noticed how many of the alien vessels kept their weapons powered and ready. For a peaceful gathering, there were a lot of guns pointed in various directions. The docking clamps engaged with a soft thud that vibrated through the Defender's hull. They were now connected to Nexus Station, hundreds of light years from Earth. If something went wrong here, help would not be coming. "All stop." "Engines offline," Morrison ordered. "Carl, Keep the reactor running, but make it look like we're powering down. Amy, I want passive sensors only, but keep recording everything. Recording everything, sir, Amy confirmed. A few minutes later, the airlock chimed. Helen checked her appearance in a small mirror and straightened her jacket. Time to meet our new neighbors. The airlock opened to reveal a corridor filled with beings from across the galaxy. Morrison had seen pictures, but meeting them in person was different. The Zephyrians moved like dancers, their crystal bodies catching the light. The Korath stomped rather than walked, their heavy boots making the deck plates ring. There were others too, floating gas bag creatures, insect-like beings with too many arms and things that looked like living shadows. All of them stopped to stare at the humans. Morrison led his small team into the corridor. Almost immediately he heard whispers in various alien languages. He could not understand the words, but the tone was clear enough. Surprise, confusion, some amusement. A tall Korath warrior approached them. His red skin was covered in scars, and his uniform displayed rank insignia that marked him as Admiral Vex. He looked down at the humans with eyes like burning coals. So, Vex said in heavily accented but clear English, these are the famous humans, the ones who claim they are ready to join the Galaxy Council. Morrison met the alien's gaze without flinching. Admiral Vex, I presume. I'm Captain Morrison. Vex looked past Morrison toward the docking port where the Defender was barely visible. One ship. Most species bring fleets to show their commitment to galactic peace. Your people send. One ship. Other aliens had gathered around them now. Morrison could feel dozens of eyes watching, judging. Some seemed curious, others looked amused, and a few appeared concerned. One ship is all we need, Morrison replied calmly. Vex laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Brave words from such a small force. Tell me, Captain, what happens if your one ship encounters trouble? Who will come to help you? We help ourselves. The crowd of aliens murmured at this response. Some seemed impressed by human confidence, but others clearly thought it was foolish pride. Helen stepped forward before the situation could get worse. Admiral, perhaps we could continue this conversation at the formal welcome ceremony. We're eager to learn about galactic civilization. Vex nodded slowly, still staring at Morrison. Yes, the ceremony. We will have much to discuss. He turned and walked away, his boots echoing in the corridor. As the aliens dispersed, Amy moved closer to Morrison. That could have gone better. Could have gone worse too, Morrison replied. He watched the aliens moving through the station corridors, noting how they grouped by species and how many carried weapons. Remember, we're not here to make friends. We're here to prove that Earth deserves a seat at their table. Helen looked worried. What if they decide we don't? Morrison smiled, but it was not a warm expression. Then they'll learn something new about humans. 3 days of meetings had not gone well for the human delegation. Helen Price sat in her small quarters aboard the Defender, reading reports from the diplomatic sessions with growing concern. Every proposal Earth had made was blocked by the Korath. Every question about human technology was met with suspicious stares from the Zephyrians. Even the normally friendly Arcturus Union seemed to be keeping their distance. The Galaxy Council chamber was huge, with seats arranged in circles that rose up like an ancient amphitheater. Each species had their own section, with the most powerful civilizations sitting closest to the center. The humans had been given seats in the outer ring, along with species that were still being evaluated for membership. During the morning session, Councillor Thane of the Arcturus Union had presented a trade agreement between his people and the hegemony. It was a simple deal about shipping routes and cargo fees, but when Helen tried to ask how Earth might participate, Admiral Vex stood up immediately. The humans have not proven they can protect trade routes, Vex had declared, his voice carrying across the chamber. They have one ship. How can one ship guard an entire shipping lane? Other aliens had nodded in agreement. The Zephyrian representative, a tall being whose crystal body sparkled with inner light, had added her own concerns. The humans claim advanced technology, but we have seen no proof. Their ship appears to be a simple exploration vessel. Helen, had tried to explain that Earth preferred to keep military capabilities private until trust was established. But this only made things worse. The aliens began whispering among themselves about human secrecy and what it might mean. Now, sitting in her quarters, Helen reviewed the transcripts of each failed discussion. Every time humans tried to participate, someone found a reason to exclude them. The pattern was becoming clear. The Galaxy Council was not seriously considering Earth for membership. This was some kind of test, and humans were failing. A knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in." Captain Morrison entered, followed by Amy Brooks and Carl Turner. The captain looked tired, but his eyes were alert and focused. "We need to talk." Helen gestured to the small table in her quarters. "I was just reviewing today's sessions. It's not going well." "It's going exactly as they planned," Morrison replied, taking a seat. "This isn't about diplomacy anymore." Amy activated a small device that she placed on the table. It hummed quietly and created a faint energy field around them. "Jamming field," she explained. "Some of the alien tech can listen through hull plating." Carl leaned forward, his expression serious. "I've been running deep scans of the station for 3 days. This place isn't just a diplomatic hub, it's a fortress. There are weapon systems hidden throughout the structure, and I've detected at least 30 cloaked ships in the surrounding space." Morrison nodded. "Amy's been monitoring communications. Tell her what you found." Amy pulled out a small tablet and scrolled through data. "The aliens have been talking about us on private channels, not diplomatic discussions, military assessments. They're evaluating whether humanity is a threat." Helen felt a cold knot form in her stomach. "What kind of threat?" "That's what worries me," Amy continued. "Some species think our isolation was suspicious. They believe Earth has been secretly watching galactic civilization and building weapons based on what we learned." "Which is true," Carl said quietly. Morrison's expression remained calm, but Helen could see tension in his shoulders. "The question is whether they plan to invite us in or eliminate the potential threat we represent." "Eliminate?" Helen stared at the captain. They wouldn't attack a diplomatic mission. "They might if they thought that diplomatic mission was really a scouting force," Morrison replied. "Think about it from their perspective. Humanity appears out of nowhere after 50 years of isolation. We send one ship with 4 people. We refuse to share technological details. We claim we're peaceful but won't prove our military capabilities." Amy nodded. "To them, we either look incredibly arrogant or incredibly dangerous. Both options make them nervous." Carl tapped his tablet, bringing up a 3-dimensional map of Nexus Station. Red dots marked weapon emplacements throughout the structure. If they wanted to test our defenses, this would be the perfect place. Isolated location, massive firepower, and dozens of witnesses to confirm that humans were hostile when they defended themselves. Helen studied the map with growing alarm. The red dots were everywhere, in the docking bays along the main corridors, even in the diplomatic chambers. "This is insane. The Galaxy Council is supposed to be about peace." "Peace through strength," Morrison said. "Every species here earned their place by proving they could defend themselves. The weak ones were conquered or absorbed long ago." A chime from Amy's console interrupted them. She checked the incoming message and frowned. "It's from Counselor Thane. He wants to meet with Helen privately." Morrison considered this. Could be a trap. Or it could be our only chance to learn. "What's really happening?" Helen replied. "I'll go." An hour later, Helen met Thane in a small observation lounge overlooking the station's main docking bays. The Arcturus counselor was alone, which was unusual for such meetings. His blue skin seemed to shimmer with nervous energy. "Thank you for coming," Thane said as Helen approached. "I wanted to speak with you away from the formal chambers." Helen sat across from him, noting how his large eyes kept glancing toward the corridors as if watching for observers. "You seem concerned about something." Thane was quiet for a moment, watching ships move through the docking bays below. "Your people are in danger," he said finally. "Several species are planning to vote against human membership tomorrow, but that is not the real problem." What is the real problem? The vote is meaningless. It was decided before you arrived that humanity would be rejected. The Korath convinced enough species that your isolation and secrecy make you a potential threat to galactic stability. Helen felt her heart sink. Then why bring us here at all? Thane turned to face her directly. To evaluate your true capabilities. The Korath believe you are hiding advanced weapons technology. The Zephyrians think your single ship is either a sign of arrogance or evidence of hidden strength. The hegemony wants to know if Earth represents a future military threat. And, what do you think? I think your people are either very brave or very foolish, Thane replied. Tomorrow Admiral Vex will call for a demonstration of human military capabilities. It will be presented as a standard evaluation required for council membership. Helen's blood turned cold. What kind of demonstration? Combat trials. Your ship? Against a combined task force. They will claim it is a test of defensive capability. But the real purpose is to either prove you are weak or to justify destroying you as a threat. How many ships? Thane's skin darkened with emotion. 12 vessels, from 6 different species. Heavy cruisers, stealth frigates, and energy shield corvettes against your single exploration ship. Helen stared out at the docking bays, where alien warships sat like sleeping predators. Why are you telling me this? Because some of us remember what it was like to be judged by more powerful species. The Arcturus Union was once dismissed as primitive traitors. We survived by proving our worth, but many others did not. Thane stood up slowly. Your people seem honorable. I hope they are also prepared. When Helen returned to the Defender, she found Morrison and his crew in the ship's small briefing room. Charts and technical displays covered every available surface. The captain looked up as she entered. Let me guess, Morrison said. Tomorrow we get to prove ourselves. Helen nodded and quickly explained her conversation with Thane. As she spoke, Amy and Carl exchanged glances that suggested they were not surprised by this development. 12 ships, Carl said when she finished. That's more than I expected. Can we handle 12 ships? Helen asked. Morrison smiled, and for the first time since arriving at Nexus Station, it looked genuine. Helen, you're thinking like a diplomat. You're worried about winning a fair fight. This won't be a fair fight. Amy laughed softly. No, it won't be fair. It'll be 12 alien warships against 1 human ship. She paused and looked at Morrison. Should we tell her? Morrison nodded. Helen, there's something you need to understand about the Defender. We didn't come here hoping to talk our way into the Galaxy Council. We came here ready to fight our way in if necessary. What do you mean? Carl activated one of his displays, showing detailed schematics of the Defender. The image looked nothing like the simple exploration ship Helen thought she knew. The Defender isn't what it appears to be. It's a prototype warship designed specifically to fight multiple alien vessels simultaneously. Helen stared at the schematics in shock. Where she expected to see cargo bays, there were weapon magazines. Where she thought there were simple engines, there were advanced propulsion systems. The entire ship was a carefully disguised weapon of war. For 50 years, Earth has been watching the galaxy and learning, Morrison explained. We studied alien technologies, analyzed their military tactics, and designed countermeasures for their weapons. The Defender is the result of that preparation. Brought up tactical displays showing alien ship designs and their weaknesses. Korath vessels rely on heavy armor, but have weak points in their power distribution systems. Zephyrian energy shields can be. The Galaxy Council chamber buzzed with excitement as Admiral Vex made his announcement. Representatives from dozens of species filled the circular seating area, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. At the center of the chamber, a massive holographic display showed the space around Nexus Station. The evaluation of human military capabilities will begin in 1 hour, Vex declared, his voice echoing through the chamber. As is standard for all species seeking council membership, they must demonstrate their ability to defend themselves and their allies. Helen Price sat in the human section, trying to keep her expression neutral while her heart pounded. Around, her alien representatives whispered to each other in dozens of languages. Some seemed excited by the upcoming spectacle, while others appeared concerned about the fairness of the test. Counselor Thane caught her eye from across the chamber and gave a slight nod. His warning from the previous day had been accurate. This was not a standard evaluation, but a carefully planned trap. On the holographic display, ships began moving into position around a designated combat zone several kilometers from the station. Helen counted them as they appeared: 2 Korath heavy battlecruisers with massive gun turrets, 3 Zephyrian corvettes whose crystal hulls gleamed with energy shields, 4 hegemony stealth frigates that flickered in and out of visibility, 2 Vorthan destroyers bristling with missile launchers, and 1 massive Titan-class dreadnought from the mysterious Shadowkin Empire. 12 ships total, just as Thane had predicted. Each one was designed for war, with crews that had fought in dozens of conflicts across the galaxy. Against them, humanity would field the UES Defender, a single ship that most aliens believed was a simple exploration vessel. "The human ship approaches the testing zone," announced the chamber's computer system. Helen watched as the Defender appeared on the display, moving slowly toward the center of the alien formation. The ship looked tiny compared to the warships surrounding it. She could see weapons tracking the human vessel as it took position, but the Defender's own armaments remained hidden. Admiral Vex stood up in his section, addressing the chamber with obvious satisfaction. "The rules are simple. The human vessel must survive for 10 minutes against our combined forces while demonstrating defensive capabilities. Non-lethal weapons only will be used to disable systems rather than destroy the ship." Helen almost laughed at the hypocrisy. Non-lethal weapons fired by 12 warships would still be more than enough to completely destroy the Defender if it was truly the exploration vessel it appeared to be. Meanwhile, aboard the Defender, Captain Morrison sat calmly in his command chair. The bridge looked exactly as it had for the past 3 days: simple, functional, and unimpressive. Amy Brooks worked at her console, running through final system checks that appeared routine. Carl Turner monitored engineering systems that seemed standard for any human spacecraft. "All alien vessels are in position," Amy reported. "They're forming a 3-dimensional cage around us. No escape routes." Morrison nodded. "Carl, are we ready?" "All systems are green, Captain. The masking protocols are still active. They see exactly what we want them to see." "Good. Amy, what's our target priority?" Amy's console displayed tactical information about each alien ship, including weaknesses that had been identified through 50 years of observation and analysis. "Korath battlecruisers first. Their heavy weapons pose the biggest immediate threat. Then the Shadowkin dreadnought before it can deploy its gravity weapons. The Zephyrian corvettes are fast but lightly armored, so we can handle them after the big threats are neutralized. And the stealth frigates? They're already on our passive sensors. Hegemony stealth technology works by bending electromagnetic radiation, but it can't hide gravitational signatures. We've been tracking all 4 of them since they decloaked." Morrison opened a communication channel to Nexus Station. "This is Captain Morrison. The Defender is ready for evaluation." Admiral Vex's voice responded immediately. "Excellent, you may begin now." The first attack came from the Korath battlecruisers. Massive plasma cannons fired warning shots that passed close to the Defender's hull, designed to test the human ship's evasive capabilities. The energy bolts were bright enough to light up the surrounding space, each one carrying enough power to melt through several meters of standard armor plating. The Defender responded by rotating slowly and activating what appeared to be basic maneuvering thrusters. To the observers on Nexus Station, it looked like the human ship was struggling to avoid the incoming fire. "Pathetic," one alien representative muttered. "They can barely dodge simple warning shots." But Helen noticed something that the others missed. The Defender's movements looked clumsy, but the ship never actually took any damage. Each plasma bolt passed exactly where the ship had been, not where it was going to be. The humans were not struggling to evade. They were making it look like they were struggling. The second wave of attacks came from the Zephyrian corvettes. These ships moved with incredible grace, their energy shields glowing brighter as they prepared to fire. Crystalline beam weapons lanced out toward the Defender, designed to overload electrical systems rather than cause physical damage. This time, the Defender's response was different. The ship suddenly accelerated in a direction that should have been impossible given its apparent engine configuration. The beam weapons missed completely as the human vessel performed a maneuver that defied several known laws of physics. "Interesting," Admiral Vex said over the communication channel. "The humans have better engines than expected." Morrison smiled but did not respond. Instead, he gave Amy a simple nod. "Weapons free," Amy announced. The transformation of the Defender was immediate and shocking. Hull plates that had appeared to be simple armor slid aside to reveal weapon systems that should not have existed on an exploration vessel. Gun turrets emerged from hidden compartments, missile pods deployed from concealed bays, and energy weapons, powered up with a brilliant blue glow. The alien ship suddenly found themselves facing something completely different from what they had expected. "What in the void?" Admiral Vex began, but his words were cut off as the Defender opened fire. The first shots came from railguns that had been disguised as communication arrays. Tungsten projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds, struck the lead Korath battlecruiser before its crew could react. The kinetic rounds punched through energy shields like they were made of paper, leaving perfectly round holes in armor plating that was supposed to be indestructible. Alarms wailed aboard. The Korath ship has atmosphere vented through the hull breaches. The battlecruiser's captain tried to return fire, but his weapons were targeting systems designed for the slow, clumsy vessel they thought they were fighting. The Defender had already moved to a completely different position. The second Korath battlecruiser managed to fire its main guns, sending a massive plasma blast toward where the Defender had been. But the human ship was no longer there. Advanced maneuvering systems that had been hidden throughout the hull allowed it to change direction and speed in ways that seemed impossible. Amy's targeting computer locked onto the Zephyrian corvettes. These ships relied on their energy shields for protection, believing that their crystalline barriers could stop any known weapon. They were wrong. The Defender's laser arrays fired not at the ships themselves, but at the shield generators that powered their defenses. Precise beams of coherent light sliced through the projector arrays like surgical instruments, leaving the corvettes completely defenseless. Follow-up strikes from conventional missile systems destroyed 2 of the corvettes instantly. The third tried to escape, but human sensors had been tracking its movement patterns from the beginning. A spread of smart munitions intercepted the fleeing ship and reduced it to glowing debris. Carl Turner's voice came over the ship's internal communication system. All systems operating within normal parameters. Power levels at 60% and climbing. Morrison nodded with satisfaction. They had only been fighting for 3 minutes, and half of the alien task force was already neutralized. The remaining ships were beginning to realize that they were not facing a simple exploration vessel, but something far more dangerous. The hegemony stealth frigates tried to attack from their cloaked positions, believing that their invisibility would give them an advantage. They were completely wrong. "Stealth ships are moving to attack positions," Amy reported calmly. "All 4 vessels are locked on gravitational sensors." "Fire," Morrison ordered. The Defender's response to the invisible threat was devastating. Cluster munitions designed specifically to counter stealth technology filled the space around the cloaked ships with expanding fields of destruction. The hegemony vessels had no way to avoid the attack because they did not know they had been detected in the first place. 3 of the stealth frigates were destroyed immediately. The 4th managed to decloak and fire a desperate shot at the Defender, but human point defense systems intercepted the incoming missile with mechanical precision. In the Galaxy Council chamber, complete silence had fallen. Representatives from dozens of species stared at the holographic display in shock. The human ship that they had dismissed as primitive was systematically destroying some of the most advanced warships in known space. The Galaxy Council chamber remained dead silent for nearly a full minute after the last alien ship surrendered. Representatives from dozens of species stared at the holographic display where debris from 11 destroyed warships drifted in space around the undamaged human vessel. The Defender hung motionless among the wreckage, its hull plates already sliding back into place to hide the weapons that had just demonstrated humanity's true capabilities. Helen Price watched the alien faces around her change from shock to fear to something approaching awe. The Zephyrian representative's crystal body had turned a deep purple color that she recognized as indicating extreme stress. Several of the insect-like hive-mind delegates were chattering rapidly in their clicking language, their compound eyes focused on the human section of the chamber. Admiral Vex's image appeared on the main communication screen, his red face showing burns from atmospheric venting aboard his damaged command ship. The proud Korath warrior who had mocked humanity 3 days earlier now looked shaken and uncertain. "The evaluation is complete," Vex announced, his voice lacking its previous confidence. "The human vessel has demonstrated adequate defensive capabilities." A ripple of nervous laughter moved through parts of the chamber. Adequate was hardly the word for what they had just witnessed. The humans had not just defended themselves, they had completely annihilated a combined task force that should have been able to destroy any single ship in known space. Councillor Thane of the Arcturus Union was the first to recover his composure. He stood up in his section and addressed the chamber. "I believe we need to recess and consider what we have learned about our human guests. This evaluation has raised many questions that require answers." Murmurs of agreement came from around the chamber. Helen could see groups of aliens already, gathering to discuss what they had witnessed in private. Some looked angry, others appeared frightened, and a few seemed impressed despite themselves. As the chamber began to empty, Helen made her way back to the Defender. The corridors of Nexus Station felt different now. Aliens who had ignored or dismissed the human delegation 3 days earlier now stopped to stare as she passed. Some stepped aside to give her room, while others watched with expressions that mixed curiosity with wariness. She found Morrison and his crew in the ship's briefing room, reviewing battle data from the engagement. Charts and displays showed the precise movements of every ship during the 8-minute conflict, along with detailed analysis of alien weapons and defensive systems. "How many?" Helen asked as she entered. Morrison looked up from a tactical display. 11 ships disabled or destroyed. Admiral Vex's command vessel was left intact deliberately. Amy Brooks turned from her console where she was cataloging the effectiveness of different human weapons systems. Total casualties among alien crews were minimal. Most ships lost power and life support but maintained hull integrity. Their people will survive. Helen felt a wave of relief. Despite the devastating nature of the attack, the humans had tried to minimize loss of life. What happens now? Carl Turner highlighted several sections of his engineering reports. Now they know we're not some primitive species that got lucky with one advanced ship. The technology we demonstrated today is at least 50 years ahead of anything in their databases. Morrison nodded. Which means they're going to want answers. The Galaxy Council is probably meeting an emergency session right now trying to figure out how humanity developed such advanced weapons while supposedly isolated from galactic civilization. And what are we going to tell them? Morrison smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. The truth, or at least enough of it to make them understand their situation. 2 hours later, Captain Morrison stood before the full Galaxy Council. The chamber was packed beyond normal capacity, with representatives from species that had traveled across the galaxy to witness this moment. News of the human demonstration had spread quickly through interstellar communication networks, and everyone wanted to see what would happen next. Morrison wore his dress uniform, a simple blue outfit with minimal decoration that contrasted sharply with the elaborate robes and armor worn by alien dignitaries. He stood alone at the center of the chamber, surrounded by hundreds of beings who had just learned that their assumptions about human military capability were completely wrong. Honored counselors, Morrison began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems. You have questions about what you witnessed today. I am here to provide answers. Admiral Vex was the first to speak, his image appearing on the main screen from his damaged ship. Captain Morrison, your vessel demonstrated weapons technology that surpasses anything in our databases. How did an isolated species develop such advanced systems? Morrison clasped his hands behind his back and looked around the chamber. We were not as isolated as you believed. For 50 years, humanity has been observing galactic civilization. We studied your technologies, analyzed your military tactics, and learned from your conflicts. The weapons you saw today were designed specifically to counter known alien defensive systems. A Zephyrian counselor stood up, her crystal body flickering with agitation. You watched us? You spied on our people for half a century? We observed, Morrison corrected. Your species broadcast communications across the galaxy. Your military forces operate in open space. Your technologies are visible to anyone with sufficient sensor capability. We simply paid attention to what you were doing. The chamber erupted in whispers and harsh conversations as representatives discussed this revelation among themselves. Many species had assumed that Earth's 50-year isolation meant humanity was focused entirely on internal development. The idea that humans had been secretly studying galactic civilization was disturbing to many. Counselor Thane raised his hand for attention. Captain, if your people have been preparing for potential conflict with galactic powers, what are your intentions? Now, are we to consider humanity a threat to established peace? Morrison's expression remained calm. That depends entirely on how we are treated. Humanity came here seeking peaceful membership in the Galaxy Council. We hope to join your civilization, as equals, contributing our knowledge and resources to mutual prosperity. And if that membership is denied, asked a representative from the hegemony. Morrison paused for a moment, letting the question hang in the air. Around the chamber, hundreds of alien eyes watched him intently. Then we will return to Earth and continue our independent development. But understand this, humanity will never again allow itself to be vulnerable to external threats. We have learned from observing your history what happens to weak species in this galaxy. Admiral Vex leaned forward on his communication screen. What do you mean by that? We know about the Kalian Empire, which was absorbed by the Korath 200 years ago. We know about the sentient crystals who were enslaved by the Zephyrians when their worlds were conquered. We know about dozens of species that were eliminated or subjugated because they could not defend themselves against more powerful neighbors. The chamber fell silent as Morrison continued. Earth studied those conflicts and reached a simple conclusion. Survival in this galaxy requires the ability to fight and win against any potential enemy, so we prepared for war while hoping for peace. Helen Price watched from the human section as alien representatives absorbed this information. Some looked angry at being observed without their knowledge, but others appeared to understand humanity's reasoning. In a galaxy where the strong dominated the weak, preparation for conflict was logical. A floating gas bag creature from the Nebula Consortium spoke in a voice like wind chimes. You claimed to seek peace, yet you built weapons of unprecedented power. How can we trust your peaceful intentions? Morrison turned to face the alien directly. Because we had those weapons 3 days ago when Admiral Vex insulted our delegation and questioned our strength. We had them when various species blocked our proposals and dismissed our contributions. We had them when you planned this evaluation to either humiliate or destroy us. Yet we did not use them until we were forced to defend ourselves. The logic was undeniable. If humanity had wanted to attack the Galaxy Council, they could have done so at any time since arriving at Nexus Station. Instead, they had endured 3 days of insults and suspicious questioning while keeping their true capabilities hidden. Amy Brooks stepped forward from the human section, carrying a data tablet. If I may, Captain? Morrison nodded, and Amy approached the center of the chamber. Counselors, I have detailed specifications for every weapon system demonstrated today. Our railguns use magnetic acceleration principles that exploit weaknesses in energy shield technology. Our maneuvering systems employ gravitational manipulation that makes traditional targeting solutions ineffective. Our sensor arrays use gravitational detection methods that render stealth technology obsolete. She held up the tablet. This information is being transmitted to your databases now. We offer it freely as a gesture of good faith and as proof that humanity seeks cooperation, not domination. The chamber buzzed with activity as representatives checked their own systems and confirmed that they were indeed receiving detailed technical specifications for advanced human weapons. The information was more. The emergency session of the Galaxy Council lasted 18 hours. Representatives from 43 different species debated behind closed doors, while Captain Morrison and his crew waited aboard the Defender. Helen Price had been invited to observe some of the discussions, but most of the real negotiations happened in private meetings between the major powers. During the long wait, Amy Brooks monitored alien communications throughout Nexus Station. The conversations she intercepted revealed just how badly the human demonstration had shaken galactic civilization. Military leaders across dozens of worlds were demanding immediate assessments of their own defensive capabilities. Some species were calling for increased alliance agreements, while others debated whether to attempt diplomatic contact with Earth directly. "The Korath are scared," Amy reported as she reviewed the latest intelligence. "They're recalling their frontier fleets to defend their core worlds. Admiral Vex has been sending reports about human weapons that his superiors are having trouble believing." Carl Turner looked up from his engineering station, where he was reviewing battle damage to alien ships. "The Zephyrians are demanding to know how we bypassed their energy shields. Apparently, shield technology has been their primary military advantage for 3 centuries. Morrison nodded, but remained focused on a different concern. "What about the species we haven't heard from yet? The ones that didn't participate in the evaluation?" Helen consulted her diplomatic notes. "The Voidwalkers sent a representative to observe, but they haven't made any official statements. The Ancient Collective is reportedly analyzing our weapons data but hasn't shared their conclusions. And the machine hegemon has been completely silent," Morrison finished. Which could mean anything. The machine hegemon worried him most. This civilization consisted entirely of artificial intelligences that had outlived their creators. They possessed technology that was thousands of years old and computational capabilities that exceeded most organic species. If anyone could develop countermeasures for human weapons, it would be them. A chime from the communication system interrupted his thoughts. The main screen activated to show Counselor Thane, looking tired but determined. "Captain Morrison, the Council has reached a preliminary decision. Your presence is requested in the main chamber." Morrison stood up and straightened his uniform. "All of us?" "Yes, the entire human delegation." 30 minutes later, the 4 humans entered the Galaxy Council chamber to find it packed with representatives from across known space. The circular seating arrangement had been expanded to accommodate species that normally did not attend regular sessions. Even some of the mysterious elder races had sent observers. At the center of the chamber, a new seat had been added to the inner circle. It was simple and functional, designed in human proportions. The message was clear before anyone spoke a word. "Admiral." Vex stood up in the Korath section, his scarred face showing a mixture of respect and wariness. "Captain Morrison, the Galaxy Council has voted. By a margin of 37-6, humanity has been accepted for full membership." The chamber remained quiet as Morrison absorbed this announcement. Full membership, not the probationary status that most new species received. The aliens had decided that humanity was too powerful to be treated as junior partners. However, Vex continued, "This membership comes with specific conditions and expectations." Morrison had expected this. Galactic civilization was not going to simply welcome Earth without safeguards. "What conditions?" Counselor Thane stood up to address the chamber. "First, humanity must establish formal diplomatic relations with all major galactic powers within 1 standard year. No more isolation and observation from the shadows." Helen Price nodded. This was reasonable and something Earth had been prepared to do anyway. "Second," added a Zephyrian representative, "human military technology must be shared with Council members for defensive purposes. We cannot allow one species to maintain such a significant technological advantage." Morrison had anticipated this demand as well. "We are willing to share certain technologies, but not all. Some human innovations must remain restricted for security reasons." The chamber buzzed with discussion as representatives debated this limitation. Several species were clearly unhappy with the idea that humans would retain technological secrets, but they also understood that demanding complete disclosure would likely result in humanity rejecting Council membership entirely. A new voice spoke from the shadows at the edge of the chamber. The speaker was barely visible, appearing as a shifting form that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The Ancient Collective has reviewed human weapons data. Your technologies represent a significant advancement in several fields. We are interested in establishing research partnerships. Morrison felt a chill at those words. The Ancient Collective was one of the oldest known civilizations, with scientific knowledge that spanned millions of years. If they were interested in human technology, it meant Earth had developed something truly revolutionary. We would be honored to discuss scientific cooperation, Morrison replied carefully. The third condition came from an unexpected source. A mechanical voice echoed through the chamber as the machine hegemon's representative finally spoke. Humanity will establish monitoring stations in 3 border sectors. Your advanced sensor technology will be used to detect threats to galactic security. This was more complex than it sounded. The border sectors were areas where unknown dangers occasionally emerged from beyond mapped space. By asking humans to monitor these regions, the Galaxy Council was essentially making Earth responsible for early warning against external threats. We accept, Morrison said after a moment's consideration. The monitoring stations would give humanity a legitimate military presence in strategically important areas, while also demonstrating their commitment to galactic defense. Helen Price stepped forward to address the chamber. On behalf of Earth and all humanity, we accept these conditions and look forward to working with our new allies. The formal vote was called immediately. One by one, each species registered their decision. The final tally was 41 in favor, 2 abstentions, and 0 opposed. Even the species that had initially voted against human membership had changed their positions after seeing the technological specifications humanity had shared. As the voting concluded, Admiral Vex approached the human delegation. The proud Korath warrior looked very different from the arrogant being who had mocked humanity 3 days earlier. His scarred face showed genuine respect as he extended his hand in the human gesture of greeting he had obviously learned for this occasion. Captain Morrison, Vex said as they shook hands, I owe you an apology. When I saw your single ship, I thought your people were either foolish or arrogant. I was wrong on both counts. Morrison smiled. You weren't wrong, Admiral. We are arrogant. We just happen to have good reasons for it. Vex laughed, a sound like grinding metal that somehow conveyed genuine amusement. Your people are warriors, after all. The galaxy is fortunate to have you as allies rather than enemies. We prefer peace, Morrison replied. But we're very good at war. The chamber gradually emptied as representatives departed to carry news of humanity's acceptance back to their home worlds. Helen Price remained behind to handle immediate diplomatic protocols, while Morrison and his crew prepared the Defender for departure. As they walked through the corridors of Nexus Station, the change in alien attitudes was obvious. Species that had ignored the humans 3 days earlier now stopped to nod respectfully or offer formal greetings. Some requested permission to visit the Defender and examine human technology firsthand. It's amazing how quickly attitudes change when people realize you can kill them, Amy observed as they passed a group of Zephyrian officers who stepped aside to let the humans pass. Carl Turner chuckled. Respect through superior firepower. It's not the most diplomatic approach, but it works. Morrison remained thoughtful as they reached the Defender. The ship looked exactly the same as when they had arrived, but everyone who saw it now understood what lay hidden beneath its simple exterior. Word would spread quickly through galactic communication networks that humanity possessed military technology beyond anything previously known. What happens now? Helen asked as they boarded their ship. Morrison settled into his command chair and activated the communication system. Now we go home and tell Earth that we're no longer alone in the galaxy. We have allies, trading partners, and probably a few new enemies. And the fleet? Morrison's expression grew serious. The fleet continues construction. Council membership doesn't change the fact that this galaxy is dangerous. We've made friends today, but friendship can change. Military superiority is more reliable. Amy brought up star charts showing the route back to Earth. How long before other species try to develop countermeasures for our weapons? They're probably working on it already, Morrison replied. Which is why our scientists are already working on the next generation of human military technology. The Defender is impressive, but it's just the beginning. Carl Turner activated the ship's engines and the Defender began moving away from Nexus Station. Through the main screen they could see alien vessels departing in all directions, carrying news of humanity's acceptance into galactic civilization.